Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching this. My name is Ian Crawford, and I'd like to welcome you to FYO 000249 Foundations in Business 1. I know some of you now will have a little shiver down your spine because I know that not all students are supernumerate. Let me assure you at this very start, this module does not require high levels of numeracy. Having said that, for those who are supernumerate, who are good at manipulating numbers, this is a chance to shine as well. So like I said before, my name is Ian Crawford. My email's there. I'm always accessible, so you're always very welcome to drop me a line. And I'm going to be the course tutor for the first 5 to 6 weeks as we work through the first assessment. And then Andy Broom will take over. Andy has much better jokes than me, as he always tells everybody, and he will complete the case study, the class test you'll do towards the end of week 12 in tutorial. So that's a little bit about ourselves. We're both very accessible. Because of the online nature of things, we are going to be quite strict on responding during office hours. Because there is a danger in terms of health and safety that we'll end up working throughout the night as students send emails and questions. So let's have a look then. So this is a bit of a brief introductory talk. This is a picture of the City of London, the financial hothouse of the UK, where lots of money is made. And one of the things we're looking at in this is obviously business finances. And just please remember that we're all good at our own personal finances. So if you think about your own, if you go out for an evening and you might take £20 out, if you come back with no money, that means you've spent up. And businesses really are very similar. So a business will have income. At the end of the day, the income will have cost of sales deducted from it. And anything left over is potentially what we might call profit or surplus. And businesses are exactly the same as our own personal finances. And in terms of the numeracy element, that's how I was advise students at the start to think about the money. Probably hasn't helped at all, has it? There you go. So what we're looking at is a very brief introduction to understanding company accounts. Now this is quite high level on one level because if you study this in business school, it's probably something you're going to take a couple of years to get to the bottom of. So this is a flyby visit. We're not expecting students at the very end of it to have supreme knowledge of accounting standards, but it's just a chance for you just to manipulate a bit of data and to produce a simple report. Business finances are always in the news. So for example, this is at the start of this year where Dixon Carphone somehow managed to get its sales figures completely the wrong way round. As you can see in the little notes there was a clerical error, and the accountants, some of you will become accountants. There is an estimate of something like 1 in 4 graduates become accountants, so it could be you. Anyway, they didn't double check the accounts, hence the mistake. I trained as an accountant many years ago with KPMG, and it was a fantastic 2 years I worked with them in Birmingham. Had the chance of working with the Royal Shakespeare Theatre on a tunnel project in Conway. I worked at Boots, worked in London, travelled all around the West Midlands. Fantastic career. So there is a bit of an image problem with accountants, but which we'll talk about later. But it is a fantastic career, and the proper people who understand businesses are the ones who get to grips with the accounting side, the finance side. And clearly, in this Dixon's example, they failed to do that. This is another company that recently found itself in significant trouble, Patisserie Valerie, and this was a fraud case. I'm circling around with a mouse, so this was a fraud case, and we'll have to wait and see how that unfolds over the next 18 months. Financial fraud cases always take a long time to go through the courts because of the amount of preparation, because of the complexity. Like I said, what we're doing now is very straightforward. In this instance with Valerie Patisserie, KPMG, the company I mentioned before, they were brought in to lead the administration and the buyout, the management buyout. So in this particular case, the business was saved by the managers. Just in the last few weeks, HSBC have been exposed for a Ponzi scandal. Ponzi scandal, pyramid selling, businesses which have no real substance, and basically skim money off people in the lower end of the pyramid. So it's not just accountancy firms that get themselves into trouble, it's also the banks. And when we look at Tesco in a short while, we'll see that Tesco managed to lose 250 million in its accounts, I think in 2015. We'll look at that again in a minute. Okay, so this module is produced by is assessed by a report. It's a very, very simple report. In tutorial, I'm going to show you a piece of work that's done on a similar module last year. The one you're working on is a lot shorter, and my expectations in terms of outputs are not quite as great as the one you'll see, but you'll get an idea of hopefully what you're trying to achieve. The submission date is the 5th of November, so and it should say 1 p.m, not 2 p.m, I'll change that. And it is via Turnitin. Now Turnitin will pick up any work which has been submitted but has been copied, plagiarized. Often students do this by accident. So for example, they use the lecture notes and they copy that. The lecture notes will show up as in a similarity rating. So you're not technically cheating, but it's not very good academic practice. And one of the things you're learning in the foundation year is how to develop that good academic practice. I've suggested a plus 10% on this one. Every tutor will have different expectations, but generally speaking, if you go over the expected word limit, you can be penalised. So just listen to what your tutors say. I know when Andy does a piece of work later in the year, he does start to penalise if you don't hit the word count, because it is an academic skill. In this particular instance, I'm not going to really be overly punitive, punish students for going over the word limit, because I think this is the very first attempt, and often it's because students are really trying. So try and keep it within the word limit, but just be aware that some tutors are quite strict on this in different schools, so you do need to listen. Okie dokie, so your report, what will it include? Well, you're going to be looking at various sets of accounts, and you need to basically select some information and draw some conclusions. Because it's a report, it's going to be in a structured, broken down manner, so that the reader can actually go from the beginning, the introduction, to the end, the recommendation. So good use of subheadings. Within reason, more subheadings the better, within reason. So we'll have a look at that as we go through and in the tutorials and the workshop, we will spend more time looking at that. I plan to have a workshop just purely for those students who are really, really struggling beyond the tutorial. Lots of opportunity to get support. As we go further through the semester, I'm hoping to have some face-to-face contact. So again, for those students who are struggling, there's a chance to bring work in, social distance permitting, etc. So what we're going to do in this particular piece of work is look at two comparable businesses. I've actually selected them for you, and I'll show you where you can find the information in tutorial. The three businesses are Morrisons, Tesco and Sainsbury's. We're going to look at the annual reports. These are big beasts, and when you look at them, your heart will sink. But just remember, the task is very straightforward, and over the next 5 weeks, I'm going to guide you through the task. So hopefully we can break it down into parts, and hopefully you'll find it straightforward. So no panicking. One of the things I'll talk to you again in tutorial, and please remind me when we're doing some face-to-face online, is to create a Google Alert. If you haven't done this, it's a great way of gathering information about businesses. I also run a business, and I tweet on assessments, and I tweet on women in STEM, science, technology, engineering and maths. And I have Google Alerts set up, so at 7 o'clock I get what's been going on in the world on assessment in STEM, and I'm able to tweet first thing in the morning. I know it's sad. I am sad. So the Google Alerts will give you information about what's going on with your businesses. So you can see across all of these over the last few months, businesses have been struggling. So Morrisons, you can see the top left, have cut 3,000 staff. Sainsbury's are slashing management, and Tesco's are reporting difficulties in sales. So the Google Alert gives you that opportunity to gather a little bit of extra information, just to sort of make your report hopefully stand out a little bit better. Once you've selected your two businesses, skim read. You'll skim read and you'll think these go on forever, and they do. So there is a tremendous amount of information, but all we're looking for at the end of the day is just to pull out some key information, some key stats about two of the businesses you're following. Just keep your eye out for anything you find interesting, anything you're completely confused by. Make a note. We can talk about it in tutorial. As I said here in the first one, getting to know your businesses. So it is an opportunity for you to have a scan through. And the sets of reports are all on the KLE. Like I said, I'll show you these in tutorial, so please don't rush ahead if you don't want to. Essential reading. Now this is in the module guide, which I'll talk about in tutorial as well. Very, very simple book. I mean, Roger Mason's produced literally, it's a sort of book you can read. You can read it chapter by chapter overnight. Very straightforward. There are multiple copies in the library. And I do recommend, especially if you're going on to do a finance progression route, you do get this book and you do read it. The other textbook, again in the module guide, is the Marcuse book. It's an A-level business textbook. Marcuse has been writing books for years and years, and they are, generally speaking, pretty good. How do we measure financial success? So in your report, we're just looking for some indicators of success and failures of the two businesses you're following. If we were in a face-to-face situation, I would ask you to sort of discuss these, but we're not, so here we are. So what are the questions you're going to ask yourself? What is our income? What is our revenue sales? Income, revenue, sales pretty much are the same thing. It's a bit confusing if you're new to finance, because you'll see some businesses refer to income, some refer to revenue, some refer to anything. What are they different? Usually no. At the end of the day, have we made a profit and loss? So we talked about that personal example of going out in the evening with £20 and what you came back with. If you've ended up having to go to the cash point or borrow money, you've probably made a loss on your night. You probably had a good night too. So we're going to look at how profit and loss is calculated briefly. How does our performance compare to last year and to each other? This is a really key thing that you will do during this project. Data on its own is pretty meaningless, but if you can compare it to how you did last year, if you can compare it to how your nearest competitors are doing, it gives you a good idea of how the business is performing. Have we got enough cash? This is often called liquidity, and we often say, you'll hear this phrase, cash is king. Great one. If a business hasn't got any cash, it can still be making a profit, but if it hasn't got any cash, the business will fail. Are there any major developments planned? Are we going to expand into Europe, Eastern Europe? Are we expanding into the Far East? What is our business doing? Are we moving into different markets? So, for example, a lot of the retailers now offer credit cards or offer finance deals, etc., etc. Morrison's have just gone into home delivery. They've quite slow on doing that. So, what are the developments these businesses are doing? We're going to look at ratios. Ratios, if you're not good with numbers, this is something you can sort of do a light touch on. But we'll have a look at ratios in week 4 or 5. And I'll put some additional notes on there which you'll be able to use. Any other KPI? So KPI, I can hear some of you saying, what's KPI? What is KPI? Key performance indicators. So these are the key things that businesses will use to assess their health. And when you look at the annual accounts, you'll see KPI at the start. They'll have little headings like key measures, achievements this year, and basically they're talking about their KPI. And again, we'll look at this in tutorial. The notes to the accounts will go on forever, so we'll have a very brief look at that. But again, no panic, we don't have to deal with them. Is there anything else we should consider? So one of the things you might want to briefly raise in your final recommendation is the possible impact of Brexit, of the United Kingdom leaving the European Union, and no doubt we'll have discussions about that in the future. It's really important to use business terminology. So we don't want to say things like, oh, the business is doing good, the business is doing really well. What we want to say is the business has achieved high levels of profitability. The business has become more efficient. So again, these are things you're going to pick up over the year. So they won't be perfect in this report unless you've done business before, but it's something we just need to keep working at. I have put a framework glossary in the KLE. Or will have by the time you've done it. We would normally spend a morning in the Bloomberg suite in the Kiel Business School. It's just absolutely unfortunate that this is not possible with COVID. So we'll talk about what Bloomberg can do, and the data. We've got some data you can use. We've pulled off from previous years. It is unfortunate that we can't access that, but you will when you go into the business school, and it is fantastic to see the live screens. The live screens monitor things like hurricanes traveling across the Atlantic Ocean because of the potential impact on business and trade. It's anything that can be sort of measured. Bloomberg will have a go at normally. It's absolutely fantastic, and you'll really enjoy using that when you move through to the business school. The following weeks is going to be fairly structured. If you decide, if you're panicking, you think I can't deal with this, I can't deal with this, and you miss sessions, it will just make things worse, more difficult for you. Like I said, I'm determined that everybody's going to pass this report. You only need 40% to pass, so it's not a high bar. But if you attend the following sessions, the lectures will be put online, and then the tutorials will go through the content and go through the annual reports. So if you come to all the sessions, it will be straightforward. I absolutely promise you. I want everybody to pass this. I don't want anybody to trip up at the first hurdle. That would be absolutely ridiculous. But it is important that you access the lectures, you access the tutorials. If you're struggling, you access the workshops. And like I say, hopefully in due course, we'll have some face-to-face support sessions as well. And finally, it says click here to add title. Oh, well, never mind. So over the course of the week, access the KLE, select two of the 3 businesses. I don't really mind which ones. It's usually students go for Tesco plus one other. And if we do that, it gives everybody a common ground. So pick Tesco maybe, and then look Morrison's or Sainsbury's. But you know, it's up to you. Read, have a skim through. Skim through just literally means just pick up a few key ideas. You can start making notes of key data and have a look at the KPI, the key performance indicators, and the chair's statements. Incidentally, I always suggest to students that they look at the makeup of the board of directors to see how diverse they are. But we'll have a chat about that later, no doubt. Anyway, so that is very much the first session. I will put this lecture as a YouTube video, the best one you've ever watched, no doubt. But I'll also put it as just a standalone PowerPoint, so those people who get tired of me talking can just look at the slides. Like I said, for those who haven't done finance before, this is going to be very structured. We are all going to pass as long as you attend and ask questions. And I'm really looking forward to working with you. I'm also teaching on the 253, the employment module. I teach that for the whole semester, but this one you just have me for 6 weeks, and then you get Andy and his higher standard of jokes. All the very best. And one joke for you then before we go. 3 fish, beginning and ending with the letter K. When we come into tutorial, I'll be able to test whether you've watched this, and you can give me some answers. It's a great joke, my favourite joke. All the very best, and I'm really looking forward to working with you, and I'll see you in tutorial this week. Take care, bye bye.